A shepherd boy bends over a cold creek bed and pulls exactly 5 smooth stones from the rushing water, at the weapons chosen for an impossible battle. But at the wounds on a resurrected body, you start to see something the mathematical reading completely misses. The giant collapses, face first, into the dirt, and the earth shakes under the weight of his fall. 4 stones remain in the bag. They are completely unused. Because when unmerited favor is thrown into the middle of human weakness, 1 stone is enough to shatter an empire. The giant fell in the dust of the valley. But 1,000 years later, a different kind of giant stands, over a broken man. And the architecture of grace is about to appear again this time, carved into Roman stone. For centuries, historians thought the writer of John was lying. They read the ancient manuscript. They plotted the map of 1st century Jerusalem. They dug through the Roman rubble. They found absolutely nothing. John chapter 5 describes a pool near the sheep gate called Bethesda. The text claims it has exactly 5 roofed colonnades, 5 stone porches, 5 covered shelters where the blind, the lame, and the paralyzed lay waiting in the suffocating heat. The scholars dismissed the account. The archaeologists rejected the geography. They claimed no such building existed in the ancient world. They assumed John invented the architecture. They assumed he was fabricating a physical building to make a theological point about the 5 books of the Torah. They were wrong. In the late 19th century, excavators broke through a heavy layer of limestone. They dug deep into the bedrock of the city. 5 is not the number of random arithmetic. It is the number of grace colliding with human weakness. They uncovered a massive double pool. They found the bases of heavy Roman columns. They found exactly 5 porches. It was not a spiritual metaphor. It was not a theological invention. It is a physical reality carved into the crust of the earth. But the archaeology is just the setting. The real revelation is the brutal system operating in the shadow of those columns. Step back and look at the analytical mechanics of Bethesda. An angel supposedly stirs the water. The water bubbles. The crowd surges. The first person into the pool receives the miracle. The second person receives nothing. It is the ultimate spiritual meritocracy. It is a religious Hunger Games. The fastest win. The strongest survive. The ruthless step over the weak to reach the edge. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies. The sound of groaning. The desperate scrambling of human effort. And in the middle of this chaos lies a man who has been paralyzed for 38 years. His muscles are completely atrophied. His skin is practically fused to his mat. He has no money to hire help. He has no family to carry his weight. Every time the water ripples, the frantic race begins. The blind stumble forward. The lame drag themselves across the hot pavement. And the paralyzed man watches someone else take his miracle. Day after day. Decade after decade. This is not an abstract theological concept for seminary libraries. It is a precise diagnosis of the human condition. We are a species that is obsessively keeping score. He is trapped in an economic and physical system that demands performance from a man who cannot move an inch. Bethesda is not a hospital. It is a prison of human limitation. Then Jesus of Nazareth walks through the columns. He walks into a system built entirely on speed, effort, and merit, and he shatters it. He does not help the man into the water. He does not join the frantic race. He bypasses the entire structure of the pool. He looks at a man who has earned absolutely nothing. A man who has lost every single race for 38 years. And he simply speaks. Get up. The system demands effort. Grace demands nothing. The 5 porches were not just a piece of forgotten Roman architecture. They were the precise coordinates, where human exhaustion collided with divine rescue. A man walks out of the 5 porches carrying his mat. But Jesus is not finished with the number, because soon, a desperate crowd of thousands will follow him into an empty wilderness. And he will ask a young boy to open his lunch. A massive crowd presses against the side of a Galilean mountain. The wind blows off the water, carrying the sharp scent of lake salt and crushed grass. The sun is dropping low, casting long, bruised shadows across the rocky terrain. thousands of people are sitting in the dirt. And they are starving. The disciples are panicking. They look at the shifting sea of faces, and their minds immediately default to the ledger of human economy. They run the calculations. You track your financial debts. You count your relational failures. You measure your daily worth by the emails you answer, the problems you solve, the weight you carry. It would take 200 denarii, more than half a year's wages, just to give each person a single bite of food. The math is brutal, unyielding, and completely impossible. The system of merit and exchange says the crowd must be sent away into the dark to buy their own survival. Then, a fisherman named Andrew pushes through the crowd, bringing a young peasant boy to the front. The boy is holding a small, woven basket. Inside are 2 small fish, already drying in the heat, and exactly 5 loaves of bread. Look at the specific detail the gospel writer includes about the grain. It is barley. In the 1st century Mediterranean world, barley is the food of the absolute poorest of the poor. It is the rough, heavy grain you feed to the livestock when the fine wheat runs out. The boy is not carrying a royal feast. He is carrying the absolute minimum ration required for a peasant to survive the afternoon. The disciples look at the basket and laugh in despair. What are these among so many? They are right. The math does not work. The 5 loaves are not a magical starting point. They are the physical shape of human limitation. They represent the exact moment where human capacity completely exhausts itself. The world operates on a strict system of merit and exchange. You get what you earn. You pay for what you break. You bring your best effort, your entire life's savings, the whole sum of your moral performance. And it is a handful of coarse animal feed against the crushing hunger of a broken world. You cannot feed the multitude. You cannot settle the score. Jesus takes the basket. He does not demand that the crowd go earn their dinner. He does not ask for a theological exam before he opens his hands. He simply takes the inadequate, heavy barley, and he breaks it. The sound of tearing crust echoes over the quiet hillside. He breaks the 5 loaves. And the bread simply does not stop. It flows into the hands of the disciples. It spills into the laps of the hungry. Men who have never eaten a full meal in their lives are suddenly tearing into fresh bread until their stomachs ache. Women who have spent their entire lives scraping the bottom of flour jars are eating until they cannot take another bite. The 5 pieces of barley become an avalanche of unmerited favor, falling on a crowd that did absolutely nothing to earn it. When the feasting finally stops, 12 heavy baskets of broken pieces are left sitting in the damp grass. The inadequacy of the 5 was the exact prerequisite for the miracle. The bread is broken on a Galilean hillside. Even the way we approach the divine often becomes just another ledger, another set of invisible scales that must be perfectly balanced before we can sleep. And the bodies of the peasants are satisfied. But the mathematics of rescue requires a much greater breaking. And 3 years later, on a rocky execution hill outside the city walls, the number 5 is about to be violently carved into the very flesh of God. We track our debts with relentless precision. The human mind is a terrible accountant, always keeping the books perfectly balanced, always remembering who owes what. We carry the weight of our failures in our chests. We feel the cold anxiety of a moral deficit tightening in our jaws. Religion, for most of human history, has simply been a cosmic extension of this accounting. You bring a sacrifice to balance the scale. You perform a ritual to pay down the principal. You endure a season of suffering to clear the debt. The system demands that every ounce of guilt be matched by an ounce of blood or sweat. But the Christian claim is deeply, offensively different. Look at the historical reality of a Roman crucifixion. It was not just an execution. It was a public accounting. The empire would write the exact crime on a wooden board, nail it above the victim's head, and demand payment in agony. Every ragged gasp for air was a coin dropping into the treasury of Rome's justice. The wood was rough, the iron was cold, but the authors of these ancient texts are quietly building a counter-narrative. They are threading a single digit through centuries of literature. The transaction was absolute. When Jesus of Nazareth is pinned to the timber, the mathematics of human merit are finally dragged into the brutal light, the executioners take a heavy, square-forged iron spike. They drive it through the right hand, crushing the nerve. They take a second spike. They drive it through the left hand. They take a third. They drive it through the right foot, pinning it to the wood. They take a fourth. They drive it through the left foot. And hours later, after the lungs finally collapse, after the sky goes completely dark and the earth fractures, a soldier steps forward. He takes a heavy iron spear and drives it up into the side, piercing the pericardium, releasing a sudden rush of blood and water into the dirt. Exactly 5 wounds. The medieval church would later call them the holy wounds. They would paint them on altars, stitch them into tapestries, and carve them into heavy oak cathedral doors. But they are not just religious iconography. They are the numerical completion of the wilderness tent. They are the final stones gathered from the Valley of Elah. They are the absolute end of the human ledger. The cross is not a negotiation. It is a cancellation. When the 5th wound is opened, the entire transaction of human merit goes completely bankrupt. You cannot pay for your own soul, using it as a signal fire in the dark. Whenever human effort reaches its absolute limit, whenever the score cannot possibly be settled by human hands, you cannot balance the cosmic scale with your good behavior. The 5 wounds represent the total exhaustion of human effort meeting the total, violent provision of unmerited favor. 4 wounds from the iron nails, 1 wound from the spear. 4 is the biblical number of the earth. 5 is the earth plus the divine breath. It is the exact same equation that built the tabernacle in the desert, now carved directly into human flesh. The ancient sanctuary was built with 5 pillars so a broken people could enter. The body is torn with exactly 5 wounds, so a broken world could survive. The ledger is permanently closed. The debt is entirely absorbed. But the most scandalous part of this geometry does not happen on the Friday of execution. It happens 3 days later, behind locked doors. When a ghost suddenly speaks in the dark, the heavy timber of the door is barred from the inside. The room is suffocating. The air is thick with the smell of stale sweat, burning oil lamps, and absolute terror. 10 men are hiding in the dark. They jump at the sound of footsteps in the street. They flinch at the wind hitting the roof. They know the temple guards are looking for them. They know the Roman crosses outside the city walls are still stained with fresh blood. Then, without the heavy iron hinges turning, whenever the odds are insurmountable and the resources are completely exhausted, this specific number appears on the page. A man is suddenly standing in the center of the room. He speaks into the terrified silence. "Peace be with you." They panic. They think they are seeing a phantom, a spirit rising from the limestone grave. So the man steps forward, into the flickering light. He holds out his hands. He points to his feet. He pulls back his robe to show his side. Look at the terrifying, beautiful paradox of this moment. He has just shattered the biological reality of death. He has broken the spine of the Roman Empire. He has walked out of a sealed tomb in a glorified, indestructible body. He could have chosen perfect, unblemished skin. He could have erased every physical memory of the Friday execution. He chooses to keep exactly 5 marks: 2 crushed wrists, 2 pierced feet, 1 torn side. A week later, Thomas is standing in the same room. He demands physical proof. He refuses to believe unless he can push his own fingers into the empty spaces left by the iron. Jesus appears again. He does not rebuke Thomas for his theological doubt. He simply offers the evidence. He tells the fisherman to reach out, to touch the torn flesh, to put his hand directly inside the chasm left by the Roman spear. The scars are not a leftover. It is the mathematical signature of unearned favor. It is the geometry of rescue. But to see the pattern clearly, deformity from a Roman cross, they are the eternal credentials of grace. Jesus takes the 5 wounds of his execution into eternity. The book of Revelation says he stands in the center of the cosmic throne as a lamb looking as if it had been slain. The damage is permanent. The marks are forever. when the creator of the universe wanted to prove to terrified, doubting men that they were completely safe, he did not show them a blinding light of pure righteousness. He showed them the mathematics of their rescue. He showed them the geometry of unmerited favor, carved directly into his own hands. The 5 wounds remain in the flesh of God forever. But this is not just an ancient story about an upper room in Jerusalem, because that eternal reality changes exactly how you must look at the deepest, most agonizing failures of your own life right now. 5 books were handed to a shivering nation of runaway slaves, and the foundational architecture of grace was established. 5 measurements held together the bronze and wood of a desert tent, and the holy presence was opened to the broken. A defenseless people marched out of Egypt, armed with the number 5, and their shield was unmerited favor. The stones are heavy in his palm. He drops them into a leather pouch that smells of sheep and desert dust. You cannot start with the miracles in the Gospels. You cannot start with the stones in the valley of Elah. A shepherd pulled 5 smooth stones from a cold creek bed, and a terrifying giant collapsed in the dirt. A paralyzed man lay beneath the shadow of 5 Roman porches, and a brutal system of religious merit was permanently shattered. A peasant boy offered exactly 5 coarse barley loaves, and the crushing mathematics of human limitation were overwhelmed. And a resurrected Savior carried 5 iron wounds into a locked upper room, and the ledger of human debt was perfectly closed. Same number, same God. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the upper room. Not the miracle of the empty tomb itself, but the physical evidence he chose to bring out of it. He did not erase the trauma. He kept the damage. The creator of the cosmos chose to carry the 5 open wounds of his execution into eternity, simply so he could hold his hands out in the flickering light to terrified, doubting men and prove they were safe. If you are in a season where you are obsessively checking your own ledger, if you are tracking your failures, counting your moral deficits, and waiting in the dark for the unyielding mathematics of the universe to demand payment for everything you have broken, you have to go back to the foundational architecture of the biblical mind. You have to look at the scroll that formed a people. You need to look at the hands of the resurrected Christ. The score is not something you settle, it is something you surrender. The 5 stones have already been thrown. The 5 loaves have already been broken. The 5 wounds have already been carved. And may the God who has never once asked you to earn your rescue meet you in the exact center of your exhaustion and arm you with a grace you did absolutely nothing to deserve. The Hebrew Bible is anchored by a collection of texts so central that everything else is just commentary. 5 scrolls of thick animal skin, heavy with dark ink and the sharp smell of desert dust. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. The Greek-speaking world would eventually call them the Pentateuch, meaning the 5 books. But the Jewish tradition has another name for them. They call it the Chumash. It is a word derived directly from the Hebrew Chamesh, meaning 5. These 5 books form the absolute foundation of the biblical worldview. If you do not understand the 5 scrolls, you will misread the rest of the library. It is here, in these foundational texts, that the entire relationship between the divine and the human is first negotiated. Most modern readers look at these 5 books and see only a crushing weight of legislation. They see dietary restrictions, agricultural laws, and endless regulations about ritual purity. They see a rigid legal code designed to control behavior and punish failure. The Torah is not a prison sentence of impossible demands. A crowd of hungry peasants sits on the damp green grass of a Galilean hillside. The wind is picking up off the lake. It is the architectural blueprint of grace. When you read the 5 scrolls in their original historical context, you are watching a newly emancipated people trying to figure out how to live as free humans. They have spent 400 years in Egypt building monuments to a god king who measured their exact worth in bricks and straw and sweat. Their entire psychological framework is built on a brutal, unyielding system of production and punishment. The 5 books are given specifically to deconstruct that slavery. God does not hand them this instruction when they have perfectly reformed their behavior or established a functioning society. He gives it to them while they are still wiping the mud of the Nile off their hands, while they are still shivering in the vast. empty expanse of the Sinai wilderness. The rescue precedes the rules. This is the original mechanism of grace. The creator of the cosmos reaching down to a terrified, disorganized mob of runaway slaves and offering them an identity they did not earn. The 5 books establish the baseline reality of the biblical narrative. God acts first, and humanity responds. The favor is always unmerited. The deliverance happens before the first commandment is ever spoken. They are staring at a young boy holding exactly 5 coarse barley loaves. A paralyzed man lies on a mat, stained with decades of sweat and sickness. 5 scrolls to tell a people that they are loved before they are obedient. But the author of these texts did not want this concept to remain trapped in the ink of a scroll. He wanted it built into the physical environment of their camp. He wanted them to walk inside the geometry of grace, to touch it with their hands, to smell it burning in the air every single day. The desert sun beats down on the Sinai Peninsula. The heat is suffocating. Men cut acacia wood. Women spin blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. The smell of crushed olives and myrrh fills the dry air. They are building a house for the divine. Read the blueprint in the book of Exodus. Count the measurements. The pattern is relentless. The bronze altar is exactly 5 cubits long. It is exactly 5 cubits wide. The height of the courtyard hangings is exactly 5 cubits. The pillars holding up the entrance curtain are exactly 5. The bronze sockets buried in the sand are exactly 5. The wooden bars securing the walls of the holy place are exactly 5 on the north side, 5 on the south side, and 5 on the west side. Same number. Over and over. A structure literally held together by the number 5. A priest walks past the 5 pillars. He brings a sacrifice to the 5-cubit altar. A frightened Israelite brings a lamb. The animal bleats in the dust. He watches the pool of Bethesda, waiting for the water to stir beneath the heavy stone shadow of exactly 5 covered porches. The knife flashes. The blood hits the hammered bronze. The priest steps into the shadow of the tent. They are not just pitching a tent. They are constructing a theology. Every time an Israelite approaches the sanctuary, they hit a boundary of 5. They touch the wood of the 5 pillars. They see the blood on the 5-cubit altar. They are standing inside the numerical signature of unearned favor. The tabernacle is not a monument to human craftsmanship. It is the physical shadow of grace. God is dwelling among a people who have already broken his covenant. They built a golden calf. They worshipped a metal idol, while the mountain above them was still smoking with fire. They deserve immediate exile. They deserve the wilderness to swallow them whole. But the pillars hold. The 5 cubits remain. The dimensions do not shift based on human performance. Grace is woven into the heavy linen curtains. It is carved into the acacia wood. It is measured perfectly in the bronze. 4 is the biblical number of the earth. 4 winds, 4 corners, 4 directions. But 5 is 4 plus 1. It is the earth plus the divine breath. It is human frailty plus holy intervention. That is the equation of the wilderness. You bring your dirt, you bring your failure, you bring the dust of a broken world, and the 5 pillars stand waiting. You cannot earn your way past the heavy curtain. A newly freed nation stands at the base of a smoking mountain. The ground is shaking under their sandals. You cannot buy your way into the holy place. You can only enter through the exact framework of favor. The architecture whispers the secret. The 5 scrolls declare the baseline reality. But to truly understand the depth of this number, you have to look underneath the English translation. You have to dig into the ancient letters themselves. And you have to look at a strange military word that changes how you read the escape from Egypt. But the detail that changes everything is hiding in the alphabet itself. In the ancient Hebrew language, letters are not just phonetic sounds. They carry numerical weight and conceptual meaning. The 5th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is He. It is a letter that functions like a sudden breath, like an open window, constantly symbolizing divine revelation and the unearned presence of God. But the actual Hebrew word for the number 5 holds a secret that completely reframes the greatest rescue story in the ancient world. Look at the book of Exodus, chapter 13. Verse 18. The Israelites are marching, out of captivity. The smell of mud and fear still clinging to their clothes, with Pharaoh's chariots forming on the horizon behind them. Your English Bible likely translates this verse by saying, "The people of Israel went up out of Egypt, equipped for battle or armed." The word your translation uses for armed is the Hebrew kamoshem. It appears across the Old Testament to describe troops forming up for war. But its linguistic root is the exact. They are handed exactly 5 books of instruction. Same number again and again. Most people assume the numbers scattered throughout the biblical text are simply historical records. Word. We have been tracking Chamesh. The Hebrew word for 5. The text literally says, the Israelites went up out of Egypt 5'd, or walking in formations of 5. That root changes everything. Think about the historical reality of these people. They were slaves who spent generations baking mud into bricks under the mender. Brutal, snapping sound of an Egyptian whip. They had no iron swords, no heavy shields, no tactical training, and no military generals. When they marched out into the blinding heat of the desert in cracked leather sandals, their hands were calloused from forced labor, not from holding weapons. Their armor was not forged bronze. It was unmerited favor. If feeling the original language, strip away our modern assumptions, is stirring something inside you, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So, the former slaves march out into the sand. They are completely defenseless against the most advanced military machine of the ancient world. Yet the text calls them shamushim. They are armed with the number 5. They are clothed in the absolute grace of a God who fights for those who cannot defend themselves, stepping into the wilderness with a mathematical guarantee that they are protected. Grace is not a fragile theological concept. It is a weapon of war. And centuries later, a young boy would step into a valley to prove that this exact weapon is the only thing that can bring down a giant. A way to keep track of ancient inventory. A minor detail added by a scribe trying to make an old story feel grounded in physical reality. The Valley of Elah is completely silent. 2 armies sit on opposite ridges, baking in the suffocating heat of the Palestinian sun, and in the trench between them stands a man who bends the mathematics of war. He is over 9 feet tall. He wears 126 pounds of bronze scale armor that clanks and hisses with every step. The iron head of his spear alone weighs 15 pounds. He breathes out threats, and an entire nation of soldiers shivers in the dust. Down the ridge walks a teenager who smells like sheep. He is wearing no armor. He carries no bronze. He holds only a piece of curved leather and a wooden staff. David walks down to the bottom of the ravine, where a cold stream cuts through the rocks. He kneels in the mud. The water rushes over his fingers as he reaches into the creek bed. He picks up 1 smooth stone. He picks up a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth. Exactly 5 stones. He drops them into his leather pouch. They hit the bottom with a heavy, muffled thud. Most people assume David gathers 5 stones because he is preparing for a prolonged firefight. Some point to a later historical record indicating the giant had 4 relatives, and they certainly do carry that historical weight. But if you look closer at the dimensions of a canvas tent in the desert, assuming the boy is simply loading up for the rest of the family. And while the historical echoes are there, the author of 1 Samuel is painting with a much older color. If you have been tracking the pattern of the wilderness, if you have seen the dimensions of the tabernacle, you know exactly what is happening in the dirt of this valley. The 5 stones are not an ammunition reserve. They are a theological declaration. David is stepping onto a battlefield where the score cannot possibly be settled by human hands. He is entirely outmatched. He is biologically, militarily, and logically completely incapable of surviving the next 3 minutes. The ledger of human merit says the boy dies and the giant walks away. But the boy is walking into the valley Chameshim. He is armed with the number 5. He is carrying the physical weight of unmerited favor in a leather bag. The giant trusts his bronze. The giant trusts his iron. The giant trusts the brutal, unyielding mathematics of human strength. David trusts the geometry of rescue. He places one stone in the leather pouch of the sling. The sling spins above his head. The leather snaps. The stone cuts through the hot air and sinks into the forehead of the Philistine.